No, he blundered his... Oh, blundered his...
God!
These were the opening moves of Magnus Carlsen versus Nodirbek Abdusattorov, a Scandinavian defence from the youngster from Uzbekistan. Now it's day 4 of the Superbet Rapid and Blitz. This is the Blitz portion, and the day started with Magnus Carlsen chasing Wei Yi. And after that light exercise, Super Grandmasters love to warm up. It was down to business, with Magnus second looking to catch Wei Yi's points total. Now this is an important game. You've got to take down these youngsters, but hang on, they are super strong players. This is over the board chess. You can see the clock times on the left. This Queen D6 system played by Nodirbek, what's Magnus got in store? Well, he just takes the centre. Very standard. Knight F6, Knight F3, and now normally you see pawn to C6 played, but not from Nodirbek. He plays a very rare system, Knight to C6 here. Provocative play. Magnus plays the best move with Knight to B5. Normally you don't move the same piece twice in the opening, but here it's justified. If you go D5, it's the top engine move, and the trick is if Knight takes, there's this thematic tactic. You land a check, win back the queen. So Knight takes, not possible after D5. This one's got to move, then C4 comes, and so on. But Magnus doesn't do it. He goes bishop e2 here, more modest, that's why we see the drop in the bar, but he's still got a small advantage even after putting his knight on the rim, normally dim, but it's re-entering via c4 here. And don't go b5, way too weakening at this early stage. c3 can come, the knight can go via c2, you've got to do some development. So that's what Nodirbek does with bishop to g4. We get knight c4 played, eyeballing the e5 square, e6 on the board, castles, bishop e7, c3, castles, the game taking a logical course of action at this moment, bishop f4 on the board, knight d5 centralizes, hitting the bishop, nudging it back, and now Nodirbek's got to do something. How does he generate some activity? Essential in a blitz game. Well, he plays the top engine move, pawn to b5. Great play, driving this knight backwards, but why? Why didn't Magnus Carlsen jump to e5, the most natural square in the world? Well, presumably, A, he didn't want to let black exchange this slightly clumsy knight and then this bishop also, and B, when you're the side with the space, you generally don't want to initiate pawn exchanges. So Magnus backpedals, let's keep tension, pieces on the board, I should be the stronger player. Bishop d6 played. Don't take here, repair this pawn structure, fix the c5 square. So instead knight e4 from Magnus, good move, forces an exchange on g3, well not forced, but that's what was played. Knight recaptures, bishop hit, saved, queen d2, natural developing chess, queen d6 in response, and now Magnus goes wrong. An inaccurate move here. The order of the day is something like knight h4. Going after this bishop, then the light squared one becomes powerful. Rook fe1, also a decent starting move. But Magnus goes pawn to a4 here. Very natural idea, of course, and a good move in a number of positions. It's very thematic, you know, when you click around. But there's a problem in this particular one, and it's highlighted by knight to a5. Great move from Nodirbek. He finds it. There's a fork threatening to be landed here, and how do you actually prevent it? It's not easy to do because the bishop's also cutting down the diagonal. So Magnus goes queen d1. No fork down for you, Nodirbek, but now b4. Great move. Taking a tin opener to this white pawn structure here. Again, what to do? Rook c1 an option. Magnus goes c4, the most ambitious move here, but it allows these knights to start hopping. Look at the power of them. Rook e1 now played, and c5, the liberating move. The pawn you left there, back on the starting rank. poor, neglected child of the board is now thrust forward and collapsing this white centre. What to do? Magnus goes bishop f1, and now it's Nodirbek's turn to make an inaccurate move. Queen c7 best. We're going to see why. He plays the most natural move in the world, intensifying the pressure, but it runs into a great shot. Magnus finds it, knight to e4. This is why the queen should have moved. From here, it's not attacked by the knight, but now you're forced to give up the bishop, because if you move the queen, the knight was taking on c5. So this is how the game played out. Rook captures, pawn takes, and Magnus is in time to now sort out his centre. 3 pieces on it, but first he flicks in g3. Tricky move, the knight backpedaling. Now the pawn drops in the centre, queen c7, and I love this. Magnus knows how to create tricky positions. He could just take here, computer gives it dead level, but Magnus now pushes on with pawn to c5 here. Really cool idea. If queen captures, well then you're dropping a rook here, of course. There's too much pressure on d8. So that's why Nodirbek takes in the centre. Queen recaptures here. Knight b3. Magnus has allowed a massive fork. Even the pawn is hanging, but this is what he's got in response. Queen e4. Great move. Hits the unprotected rook in the corner, and so Nodirbek's got to take that time out to save that one. He doesn't want it dropping with check. Now Magnus has got time to save his own rook. It comes to the d file. He drops a pawn. Nodirbek now a pawn to the good here and attacking a4. But in compensation, Magnus has got open files now for his heavy pieces. He's first to the punch, and this bishop is a bit of a monster, unopposed. Queen b6 now played to allow this knight to take off the pawn. No more pin. So that's why pawn b3. Now we get h6 played, and in response the rook piles on the pressure on that knight on c5. Rook c8 to cover. Queen d4. Magnus setting up pins like there's no tomorrow. a5 from Nodirbek. There's no way to actually take this knight off the board yet. It is covered, but this is uncomfortable, an unprotected piece, and now Magnus should rotate this knight round. Look to come to c4, hit these weak points. The bishop hits g2. This is the way to go. But he plays h4, really natural idea, but you're actually encouraging a bad piece to improve itself. Bishop d3 best to keep an eye on f5, but not played. This one's so natural as well, but knight f5 comes, and what a move. Queen c4 played. Big blunder because there's a tactical shot in this position. Can you find the best move for black here? All to do with threats around the king. X-ray attacks, knights hopping, queen and knight combo. Deadly with knight takes on g3, and if Magnus takes, this is the point. You hop with a discovered check here, and when the king moves, you're picking up the queen. That would have been almost lights out basically. Magnus wouldn't have been able to take back. But instead, it was missed. Rook c7 played. This is blitz chess for you. So exciting. Magnus now moves the queen into the weakened b5 square, and you just can't take that one off. How would you recapture here? There's a right way and a wrong way. The way to go is with the pawn recapturing, because this is actually a very dangerous asset, and the rook is a bit overloaded, also trying to hold on to the knight. Bishop's coming, supporting the advance, deadly. But Nodirbek, of course, didn't take the queens off. He goes queen d6, hits the unprotected knight, but there's a problem. The reason the bar reacted with rook c7 is it left the back rank, Magnus checks, the king driven forward, and the f pawn collapsing. Not just that, there's these huge checks now about to come here. One of the top moves is just giving the exchange, but Nodirbek goes for play. He wants to attack. It does make sense because at least you complicate the game, but h5, an absolute killer, shutting the trap on the king. Queen h8 mate, threatened. Again, you can give up the rook here as one option, or you can move this g-pawn 1 or 2 squares. Nodirbek goes for 1, and the idea is you're now covering the checkmating square with the queen. So Magnus captures, of course, declares check. Now we get king takes back. Knight e5, discovered check from the queen, double check, king has to move, and now you'd love to check from f8 here, force this rook to block, etc. But Magnus can't do it just yet, because first he's got to cover the knight, which he duly does. Now knight e4, good move, intercepting the connection, also creating threats. Magnus has to act fast. He backpedals, gives a check here. King g7, queen takes on e6, the attack raging on. Nodirbek crashes through here, desperate to generate something, but Magnus first to the punch, with knight e5, threatening queen g6 check. One of the top engine moves is queen d6. Get the ladies off the board, go into an end game, a piece down at the end of the line. But Nodirbek doesn't do it. He takes on f1. Obviously he wants to try and complicate things, but Magnus now gets this check in. King f8, and hang on a minute. This is where Magnus just has a nervous system collapse. Playing on low time, increment, he should just take this knight with check. This is how the line can play out, you know, etc. King takes, you're simply a knight ahead with a raging attack. But unbelievably, Magnus doesn't play this most obvious of continuations. He first checks the king, and after it sidesteps here, he carries on checking again, and it looks like he's just repeating the position. Then he'll take the knight, pick up a bit of time on the clock, but it's a huge mistake, because of course Nodirbek slides with the rook, defends the check, and counters. The queen is pinned to the king. It's simply dropping from the board. It's now -7.5. It's an overwhelming material deficit. Magnus just throws in the towel. Have a look at this.
Yeah, missed it.
He's missed it.
Queen takes f5 check.
And there was also...
No, he blundered his... Oh, Magnus blundered his...
God!
What the heck did Magnus just do? He blundered his queen. Oh, what a shock.
And this is what Magnus had to say about his play today, day 4.
I think my nervous system just, collapsed during or after the game against Prague, and after that I just sucked, honestly.
What a day of chess, Wei killing it. I'll have to get to one of his games tomorrow as well, but let's be honest, everyone loves a Magnus game, especially when there's drama like this. I hope you enjoyed, smash subscribe if you did, and for another insane game with a nuts opening, check out the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.